Hello, friends, and welcome to another interview with Spencer Love right here on Love Wrestling. We preach positivity right here on the network, and I don't think that you will find anybody better as far as preaching it, as far as exemplifying it, as far as living it day by day. Gentlemen, Jervis Cottonbelly, the world's sweetest man, joining me on the show. I am so excited to have you here. I know I said that a million times before we got started, but it's always great to talk to people who are just so positive in any aspect of life, and especially in professional wrestling. How are you doing, Jervis? And thank you for joining me.
Oh, I'm doing so wonderfully today. I'm just, here on the beach, and we're having a ball. I appreciate that warm introduction, by the way. That's very kind of you, Spencer.
Well, I've got to give some audible chocolate for the world's sweetest man. Like I said, and I can't say it enough, it's great to have you on here. One of my favorite quotes in professional wrestling and life itself. You in an ESPN interview a couple of years ago, you said, "If kindness is punk rock, I'm Sid Vicious," and I love that. Maybe just give a little bit of background on yourself, your positivity, because based in Canada, perhaps we don't get the opportunity to see you as often as we want to, or get the opportunity to watch you wrestle online as often as maybe I personally think people should.
Oh, well, that's very kind of you. I'm always welcome to new viewers. So if this is the first time that we're meeting, the first time you're seeing me, I'm the world's sweetest man, Gentleman Jervis, as Spencer so wonderfully said. And my mission I'm a professional wrestler, and my mission in professional wrestling is to be the nicest possible fighter that there is, because I think sportsmanship is great, but beyond that, I think that the world most needs kindness right now. And I think 100%. That there is more than anything. And I think that the bubbles that we have grown into in social media specifically have allowed us to sort of become more black and white. So my goal is to project a very sharp and distinct image of positivity. And here's why. I am not always this positive. It takes work to get here, and it takes work to stay here. Some people have a hard time being positive. So part of the reason that I share what I'm doing, I don't tell anyone, hey, I'm the most positive guy there is. What I like to tell people is, I'm a flawed man, and I am often angry, which, if you watch my matches, you can see it comes out. I have angry outbursts. I often self-loathe and negative self-talk, and I direct anger and harm inward, and these are things that I want people to know that, hey, it's all right to have blemishes, or it's all right to have parts of your life that you're not so proud of, as long as you push forward with the hope of being positive to others and of surrounding yourself with positivity. I will not say, the world's sweetest man is a fun characterization, but I am not the world's sweetest man. There's no way that's possible. But I'll tell you this, I want to be.
And that is a great goal to have. I think that, like we were talking about before we started recording the interview, both your professional wrestling and your mental health and your just positive outlook as far as all of that goes is such a reason that I'm drawn to speaking with you. But as you mentioned, you're a professional wrestler first and foremost. My first introduction to you as far as professional wrestling goes, as I'm sure a lot of people's has been, was your match with Orange Cassidy at WrestleCircus in 2019. Maybe just give me a little bit of background on that, because maybe people don't understand the connection that the two of you guys had even outside of the wrestling ring.
Oh, yes, of course. So the match that I had with Orange Cassidy in 2019, it was at WrestleCircus in Austin, Texas. Now, I was asked by the promoter at WrestleCircus, who do you want to face? Pick your battle. And the first person that came to mind was Orange Cassidy. And not just because he was on a real true rise in professional wrestling and having, a heck of a year. Excuse my language. But I chose him because he actually taught me how to wrestle. Yes. So my very first day of professional wrestling school, it was he and Chuck Taylor that were my teachers. And
Very cool.
So I would say between 2012 and 16, I probably spent at least 1 or 2 nights a week on Chuck Taylor's floor or his couch. We spent a lot of time together, and to be honest with you, before I met Drew Gulak, or the Gentlemen's Club, so that's Drew Gulak, Chuck Taylor, Swamp Monster, and Orange Cassidy. So they're an old stable from, you can see them in Evolve, Chikara, a couple other places. But I learned from them. So when I started learning from them and traveling with them, we started to have matches together. So Orange Cassidy and I, we, believe it or not, the things that we did in the match that we had at WrestleCircus, we had done those in 2014 in Haverhill, Massachusetts.
Oh, wow.
You can find the match. It's on YouTube with just the two of us. I even put him to sleep and covered him up. I knew that was the special way to get him to down for the count. But if you can see, he did that crucifix to me and rolled me up. I had never seen that before. So I guess he had been working on his defenses. But we've already had 2 one-on-one matches, and then we've had some tag team action against one another. And I just thought that it's been I moved to California in 2015. Or 14. So I spent a couple of years apart from him, and I wanted him to see that I've improved, but also that we could make the type of wrestling that he taught me how to make. Orange Cassidy, Chuck Taylor, Bryce Remsburg, Mike Quackenbush, the people that were Eddie Kingston. I learned from all these people at Chikara. That's where I trained and where I started.
Yes.
And before I was a wrestler, I thought I just want to be, I was about 225 pounds, and I was very big and strong. And I used to want to be like a 2013 WWE prospect, I thought that that's what I was supposed to be in wrestling. But then I started to train with Orange Cassidy and Chuck Taylor and those fellows, and I saw how much fun they were having, and how they took serious the training and the art form, but they didn't take serious how they were perceived by the audience, because they just wanted their audience to have fun. They didn't care how silly they looked, as long as the audience was having a good time. That was always their goal. And if you go and watch Chuck Taylor's work, for the last 10 years, the audience always has a good time. And that's the kind of wrestler I decided I wanted to be as soon as I started training with them. Fast forward to 2019, I asked him specifically, and when we saw each other, we had a big hug, and we knew it was going to be good, because the entire time that we were talking about, and this is how we want to have our match, the whole time we were laughing and falling on the floor and just screaming, laughing like we were, because no one likes our work better than us. That's my favorite match. It's my favorite. I love that match.
Oh, I love to hear that.
Yeah, it's my favorite. I once heard of a story where in 2007, the rapper Lil Wayne released an album where he borrowed production from every other artist, and then he did his own version of the song. And it was really good, and he didn't charge any money for it. It was a mixtape. And because of this, everyone had a copy, and everyone was listening to it. And a friend of mine who lived in Miami at the time, he called me and he said, Jervis, I saw Lil Wayne driving a Lamborghini today, playing his own album at maximum volume. He was playing, I love it. It was the Drought 3. And I thought to myself, that's the kind of energy I want in my wrestling career. So
100%. If you're not laughing at your own jokes, why would you tell the joke anyways? It's obviously not funny.
What's the point?
Exactly. And I love that you mentioned it's one of your favorites, especially with a guy like Orange Cassidy. You mentioned Chuck. How cool is it for you, now that you've sort of developed in your own wrestling career, to be compared to guys like that, who are not only people who embrace the entertainment side, obviously, but do take the wrestling side of things seriously and the training side of things seriously? Because there may be a few people out there who don't see that in people who wrestle in the sort of style that you guys do.
I have to tell you that seeing Orange Cassidy, to me, Chuck Taylor, it's been known for a long time that he's a really good wrestler. That I think that goes without saying. I think he's always been, on stages to perform. But when he got to New Japan and he and Trent were teaming there with Rocky, everyone knew he was really good, but there seemed to be a question about Orange Cassidy.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I asked him in 2013, I said, hey, why aren't you at NXT yet? And he said, well, they haven't called, man. And that was the most Orange Cassidy he could give me. But I thought, when I started training with him, I thought, he's one of the best in the world. His raw ability and his charisma, at that time, I thought he was one of the best. But when people started to say, especially, well, Jim Cornette, when Jim Cornette started to say, oh, yeah, Butler, Mud Show, Outlaw Mud Show. When Jim Cornette started to say that Orange Cassidy
that was spot on, by the way.
Did you like my Jim Cornette?
That was pretty spot on.
Oh, bibbidi bow, bing, bing, bang. Yeah, well, I'm Jim Cornette. Oh, Outlaw Mud Show. I hate you. I hate you. I hate you. Sorry. Too much Cornette. Anyway, when people started to insinuate that perhaps Orange Cassidy didn't know what he was doing in the ring, my heart swelled up because I knew he was going to prove them wrong. And I knew that when people were proven wrong, they weren't going to feel bad about being proven wrong. They were going to be pleasantly and warmly surprised. And seeing the match that he had with Chris Jericho just the other night, I was filled with goosebumps and positivity, because I thought he sandbagged on them a little bit, and then he really twisted it on them. And man, that's show business. And I love that. And
it's the razzmatazz.
That's the razzmatazz. And I think there's a little element of that to what I'm doing. Because lately I've been trying to have a little bit more of a more serious approach to my attacks and my fighting style. So I've taken some inspiration from seeing Orange Cassidy go from someone who was relatively a comedy act to now a complete, to me, one of the top performers in the world.
100%.
So I've tried to adapt too. I've taken some inspiration from that.
Well, and you've taken some inspiration from some of the best in professional wrestling in the past. You've mentioned The Rock and Bret Hart as two guys who you've really loved as professional wrestlers. The Rock's kind of an obvious one for the way that he was really an entertainer, continues to be an entertainer, but maybe Bret Hart's a little bit more understated as far as stuff like that goes. Can you maybe walk me through why you like those two guys specifically?
Well, surely. The Rock, when I was maybe I was 12 years old, and my mother took me to meet The Rock. And my mom didn't really think much of it. We're going to go meet a wrestler. And when we got to, it was a card shop called BC Sports Collectibles. And when we got to the front of the line, my mom, she looked at me and she goes, there he is. She goes, oh my gosh. I was like, Mom, he's electrifying. You've been electrified. And she was like, oh my goodness. And it was this thing, this charisma. You can't explain it. You can't really put a tag on it. You can't capture it. But man, you know what it is. You know what it is when you feel it. And that was a special moment for me, because I thought, he's not even doing anything. He's just sitting in a chair electrifying. Well, he was doing something, but he was making it look easy. I'll tell you that. So that moment really stuck with me. And of course, he was always a very entertaining performer. Now, I'll say that with Bret the Hitman Hart, he always seemed to have a moral center, a strong moral center. And I think that when I saw the Wrestling with Shadows documentary, it really, I understood that there was a weird situation that had happened, and there was some uncomfortable stuff. I didn't really get it at the time. I was young. But I remember seeing that documentary, and I remember there was a part where he talked about the art of professional wrestling. And I had never understood wrestling like this, but he said there was a reason that you don't see guys with bruises on their face the next day, even though they were kicked full blast the night before. And he said that's the art of professional wrestling, is making it look like you're hurting your opponent without actually hurting them. So I always took that to heart, because the way I see it is, I have been a fighter in my days. I've jiu-jitsu and also karate at a younger age, and amateur wrestling. I've had competition where you're actually trying to overpower somebody and defeat them. But professional wrestling, in my opinion, there's more of an art form to it, because you're not just fighting, but you're also communicating the story and the emotion of why you're fighting, which often is more important than the actual fighting itself. Yes. So I would say that that sort of thing with Bret the Hitman Hart, he always fights in such a way that he doesn't want to hurt his opponent. So I thought that would take that to the next level. And rather than making it look like I was hurting someone and then not actually hurting them, I thought, what if I don't hurt them at all and I still defeat them? And that's where the things like a roll up or a rock to sleep, making the serotonin rush to their brain, that'll, and rocking them to sleep. That's a polite way to win. So I thought maybe I'll win without hurting anyone. So I think that's those two influences. But I had a rediscovery yesterday after watching a skit.
Okay.
I forgot how much in the summer of 2002, Booker T, Goldust, and William Regal just filled my heart with excitement and delight. Because
I couldn't agree more.
Those fellows are why I am the way I am.
Mm-hmm. 100%. Like, I'm not sure if it's the same year, so excuse me if I'm wrong, but was that the year that the William Regal Goldust Trading Places match happened?
That's right. Yes.
That's right. I love that. Same sort of thing.
I watched that yesterday. I retweeted that.
That might even be where I see it, the irony of stuff like that, because I was going to say it came across my timeline even in the last couple of days. And same thing, you just get a good chuckle. I'm sure you've seen it as well, where Regal's wrestling Daniel Bryan and he comes out and the old I'm a Man theme song comes on. You love it because in the same way that you've described about yourself, William Regal seems like a guy who, again, obviously takes the art of professional wrestling very seriously, but isn't afraid to have fun with it.
That's right. And That's what I took from William Regal. I'll never forget when I don't even know if this is the right word, but he really tooled Goldberg around. He treated him like a prop. He treated him like a broomstick. William Regal had an entire match around Bill Goldberg.
We talk about favorite matches.
It's the best. And then he decided, all right, time for you to go over. Here we go. All right, jackhammer. And to me, that showed that William Regal must have grinded his teeth to learn the craft of wrestling. Because here's the thing. I learned this from Drew Gulak. Part of the art of wrestling is not hurting other people, but part of the art of wrestling is sort of hurting other people. If someone takes advantage of you, I've been in situations where I've gotten a stiff hit on the jaw. It's very real that the only response is to respond exactly in kind, or perhaps even a little bit harder. And if you go harder and then that person decides to up the ante on you, you're going to have a long night. Most of the time, a stiff shot or two can calm things down. But the other thing I learned is, there's a recent match I had at Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, and Jose Santiago put me in a waistlock and he picked me up. And I immediately took my fist and started pounding on his hands, because he had his hands sort of like this, and I pounded until they broke free. Then I grabbed his arm and I twisted him and put him in a wrist lock. But a lot of the times today, you'll see someone simply loosen their grip and then another one just twists as if there was no fight behind it. So I'm trying to practice that a little more. And to bring that back to William Regal, he knew not only how to do the technical aspect of wrestling, he knew how to protect himself in terms of, no one's going to take advantage of him in the ring. He's not going to open up his body and give somebody his safety, and then they're going to take too much, because he was, you would hear an old-time wrestler would probably say, well, brother, he can handle himself in there. But being able to handle yourself is very important, and that comes from your training. And that's how, again, no one will be able to take advantage of you. I just thought if William Regal was able to do that to Goldberg without getting a whooping, and he's also someone who doesn't take himself very seriously, that's another one. That's the kind of wrestler I want to be.
110%. I wanted to ask you, how different has it been for you as someone who feeds off of a crowd and has such an emotional connection with them? How difficult or different has it been for you to perhaps perform in front of less than capacity crowds, or have limits on the amount of people who can come out and see you?
Well, when I was starting out at Chikara, my first real summer, like when I was really touring, was 2013. We were on the Wrestling Is tour. So wrestling is Hart, wrestling is awesome, wrestling is art. These are all at different places across the Northeast and Midwest. And I drove 16 hours to Southern Illinois to perform in front of 11 paid customers. So even these pandemic shows that we're having at Championship Wrestling from Hollywood up at the Ocean View Pavilion, Even those, there's more than 11 people in the room watching because we've got crew, you know. And you know, I'll also say this. There were times during that summer when we would put on broadcasts backstage, and I would be in my full costume and mask and everything for hours on end. We were doing streams back then. So
Yeah.
to me, I can perform for one. I can perform for just myself, and sometimes I perform for my dog because he loves Jervis. He loves our game.
And I love your pup as well. I just got my own pup a couple of months ago.
Oh,
Well, I'll have to introduce you in a bit when he wakes up from his nap.
oh, what kind of pup did you get?
He is a mini Australian Shepherd / Border Collie mix, but we're
Oh,
certain that there's something else in there somewhere. We got him as a little pup, so he's just the
oh,
sweetest.
that's so nice. I can't wait to meet him.
Oh, 100%. We'll have to do that soon. He's just starting to stir, but I don't like waking him up, as I'm sure you don't with Lord Booblesnoot. So we can
No.
get back inside the art of professional wrestling and the things that come with it. I had to ask you because, of course, preaching positivity is something that I really, really would love to do in professional wrestling. For yourself, you've always mentioned that it's something that you had to make sort of a conscious habit rather than something that came naturally to you. How do you continuously work on it, especially in an environment that maybe isn't the most positive sometimes?
I think the first step for me is to surround myself with honest people and good people who will, help me stay accountable. Because a lot of the time, you're not just, they say character is how you behave when no one's watching. A lot of the time, what inspires my character is my standing within my community. Now, the professional wrestling community, it's physical and digital. We gather together for shows, but we also gather together on social media platforms like Reddit and Twitter. We listen to podcasts like this one here, which is so special. And we have this community, and at times in my career, I've behaved in less than an exemplary fashion. And what I've learned is that, do my actions help the community or do they hurt them? That's a question I have to take with me everywhere I go. And putting that in my brain of, does this help our wrestling community or does it harm our wrestling community? That's helped me to show better character, when no one's watching, or for me, like, I take different counseling courses, and especially now that we're pretty much quarantined still, I watch and read a lot of self-help books and things to learn about the, I have two mental disorders that kind of compound one another, and I try to learn as much as I can about them because often they get the best of me, and I'm not the exemplary person that, I'm not a leader by example, which is what I want to be. And when I'm at my healthiest, I do believe I'm a good leader, and I believe I lead by a positive example. So what I'm trying to do now is continue to preach that message of positivity, and even if I can't be the leader, well, then someone like Danhausen or Warhorse, they take that flag of positivity, and they give it a different voice and their own unique interpretation of community and friendship amongst the wrestling community. They take that flag and they run with it when I can't. And for a moment, I felt like Orange Cassidy and Chuck Taylor. They said, "Hey, Jervy, here, take this flag a bit." And I got to wave it for a while and say, "Hey, look at how much fun we're having." And, it's like you pass it around. And a lot of the times, the best times is when we all wave the flag at the same time. But as somebody who, again, it takes work to stay positive, I can't say that I'm always flying the flag of positivity. But I can say that I always want to, and that I'm trying my best.
I love it. And do you think that that's something that perhaps has to come from a ground level, is maybe not changing the culture, but adjusting the culture of professional wrestling? Is there people like yourself, you mentioned Danhausen, Warhorse, people who really carry the flag? Is it just the need for more of those?
Well, I think yes, partly it's the need for more of those, but I think more than the positivity, it's about opening your heart and your mind. There used to be a more of a one direction, a one way mind as it pertained to the audience of a professional wrestling show.
Mm-hmm.
There was performers here, audience there, money goes this way, energy and performance goes that way. That's the
Yeah.
exchange. Now, it, it's much more intricate. I personally, I don't even ever tell people that I have fans. I don't call them fans. Sometimes I say supporters and well-wishers. Most of the time I say friends. Um, Now, we're not all best friends and we're not all close friends, but we're more than acquaintances because we share pain and heartache and excitement and anger. You know, everything that we feel when we're at a wrestling show together, we feel collectively. We feel that together. So sharing those emotions, again, being a part of a community, me opening my ears and listening not just to the other wrestlers and promoters, but listening to the audience and what they want and what they connect with, that to me is just, that's important. That's how we make small little, incremental change that's sustainable.
I love that. And you know what, Jervis? I think you just explained perfectly. For years, whenever I've done a podcast or an interview, I've always introduced them with hello, friends. And the easy answer I always gave people when they asked, why do you do that? Is, well, it's easier than saying, hey, you.
Yeah,
But you've just
exactly.
explained so well to even myself why I almost do what I do. Thank you for sharing that. I really, 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 really loved that. I do
Hey,
want to
words
close it out.
matter.
I couldn't agree more. That's why I don't like foul language.
Oh, same here. Good man.
100% Jervis. Now, I do have to ask you, we did get one fan question in before we close it
Oh,
out, and I always love to save the fan questions for the end because usually they're some of the most exciting. You, a while back, were starting to chase an Impact Wrestling job, career, placement, however you'd like to call it.
mhm.
Perhaps that didn't work out how you'd like it to, but when you look at Impact today with the way that the roster's built and the way they're set up, how would you like to join them today?
Oh, I would be delighted to join them today. I'm a big fan of the Rascals. I actually have been to their treehouse once, and I almost fell out. I actually I just was with Taya Valkyrie last week. She is one of my
Mhm.
favorite wrestlers. And she's a friend of mine. I've got a lot of mutual context there. And believe it or not, I bugged Jimmy Jacobs this week. I called him up and I asked for advice. And I just said, hey, here's where I'm at. Talk to me, because he spent a lot of time in my earlier days helping me out and giving me
Mhm.
advice. I've probably sent, at this point, probably 8 or 9 emails to Scott D'Amore at Impact. And I did get booked in an Impact match at the end of August in 2019.
Mhm.
And David Marquez actually helped set that up because I'm a member of the United Wrestling Network, and we did
Mhm.
like a joint show. So I had a match there, and they even gave me my music, and they put a video up for me, and I got a lot of positive feedback. So I thought maybe that would lead to something more with Impact. And I sent some emails and some videos after the fact, but I didn't hear anything back. So
Mhm.
my goal with that is I'm going to keep pushing. I'm going to keep
Mhm.
asking, and maybe I won't be public about it, because I think that if you do that at first and it gets a positive reaction and you get on their radar and then they can take a real look at you, that's great. But if they've already taken a look at you and then you try to make it a public thing again, I think that seems a little desperate. And at times, I've seemed a little desperate because I've been desperate for work. I want to work. I want to wrestle everywhere that I can. I want to wrestle all over the world. And I want to show everybody that I'm not a joke. And while I do tell jokes, and while I do make a joke of myself sometimes, I actually have a lot of respect for professional wrestling, and I want to turn things around. I think I could do that at Impact Wrestling. I know I could do that at NXT or Raw or SmackDown or AEW. In fact, I have been calling my shot for a minute now that someday I'm going to get an opportunity at AEW, and maybe to be on Dark or maybe to be on Dynamite. But I'm going to get it because I'm working hard towards it. And the only way to really really follow your dreams and achieve them today is to ask for what you want. You have to identify it. You have to figure it out in your mind, visualize it, see it so clearly, and then speak it, write it down, tell others. Speak your dreams into existence.
The more it is in the universe, the more likely it is to happen. Jervis, I hope that it happens for you, and whether it happens privately or publicly, if there is a hashtag to get behind, I can guarantee you, my friend, I will be behind it in some way, shape, or form.
Book Jervis, please, and thank you. Hashtag book Jervis, please, and thank you.
Let's get it everywhere, my friend. Thank you very much for taking the time for me today. I truly, truly appreciate it. It was an absolute blast to have you on. I always like to leave the last segment of any interview I do for my guests to tell people where they can keep track of them, whether it's in the ring, on social media, or anywhere else. So, Jervis, the floor is yours, my friend. Where can people keep track of the world's sweetest man?
Well, thank you, Spencer. If you'd like to keep track of the world's sweetest man, you can follow me at Gentleman Jervis across Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And of course, you can see me on September 22nd on NWA and CWFH, you Primetime Live. So that'll be on pay-per-view on Fight TV. Keep in touch for that.
100%. I will see you there, my friend. Best of luck that evening, and thank you once again for joining me. It was an absolute pleasure.
Oh, thank you for having me, Spencer. It was a joy.
I can't wait till the next time already, my friend.
Oh,